Hey guys, Tire Metalhead Weatherman here. Hopefully you guys are doing well. So, yesterday got pretty interesting. We had one tornado report right on the Nebraska-Kansas line here. And maybe there could have been another one over here. There was a confirmed tornado warning after the stream went off from that same storm that I had been looking at for like the last hour that did absolutely nothing. Just as part of the game, it's frustrating still nonetheless. I missed it because it was right where Brandon and Vince were too. That's crazy. But nonetheless, though, more severe weather ahead. Now I have another day 3 slight risk. This one is now for Sunday. So let's go ahead and take a look at who could be impacted here. We already talked about this severe weather threat last night. We now have an upgrade, though, with this area over towards Wyoming and western Nebraska here. It's now 5% area for tornadoes. The entire slight risk area is actually been pushed far off to the west this time as a whole here. Still have that 5% tornado threat and the slight risk over here towards the Carolina coast here. So we're going to be keeping an eye on that today whenever we get home from work and streaming that as well. Also have a 5% wind threat in both areas. Hatch risk for hail as well over here towards this area, this western slight risk here towards the western high plains. So it's going to be the main thing we're looking at today. But also we're going to try to cover the weekend here as well. We have this very large slight risk right now, very large 2% tornado threat area. Wind threats at 15, also hails at 15. I'm going to be keeping an extra close eye on this day in particular to see if there's a chance of any hatched risk or an enhanced risk being issued here. Would not surprise me if there is. I think the main point of emphasis will really end up being somewhere around Kansas. There could be a secondary area that pops up here, but there are a few questions that I have in regards to that, but hence why we're also doing the video, so that way I can get a better look at that. And then on day 3, we're looking back towards Texas, particularly towards Dallas, for another severe weather threat. It's unclear what the main hazard or mode of storms will be. I'm thinking mainly just going to be discrete storms, or maybe clusters of storms. I'm not sure exactly what type of threat we have right now. It's pretty unclear based off of what I read with the synopsis here. So for the most part, I'm kind of leaning towards damaging winds. But that being said, let's go ahead and take a look at things. Start out by looking at the NAM in general right here. Now the NAM 3 kilometer. It's a NAM 3 kilometer is a convective model for anyone that's actually into this stuff, which there are a few of you. But that being said, we already know our setup for today. We mentioned it in yesterday's video before the stream. We mentioned it during the stream. But yeah, here's the trough right here. This is that little ski jump that we always talk about, this little area where we see the low pressure, which is going to end up being here, and you see the winds going in this direction here. If you look down on the lower levels of the atmosphere, the winds are changing direction. So there's definitely some decent turning of the winds with height here. So our wind shear we do have a sufficient wind shear here, I should say. But that being said, we also have what is likely to become Tropical Storm Ophelia. There's a 70% chance of that developing, and that could also spark some severe storms, maybe some tropical tornadoes, possibly on the coast of Carolina here. Last time I looked over towards that area was when Idalia was going through. So that's what Friday night is going to look like for us. And then as far as Saturday is concerned, we start to take a look at that. We already know the deal. We just mentioned it really. But it's a little bit different looking on the NAM than compared to the GFS, in comparison to the GFS, and I think this is partially why I don't think that there's going to be an enhanced risk. There's a lot of model discrepancy right now, but of course that can easily change. Sometimes the models will fall into agreement at the last minute, or the 11th hour, so to speak. What is likely to become our next tropical storm eventually does make landfall around through Saturday, and then into Sunday it becomes a factor for the Northeast. Do think the tornado threat's going to be a little bit more limited though. And then towards Texas, we have this little piece of energy over here that develops here, and this is what's going to allot for a few nighttime severe storms. It'll quickly clear out though, and then by the next day, Monday looks a little bit more peaceable in comparison to previous days. But go ahead and look at other levels of the atmosphere here. Pretty much just looking at the NAM the entire time, to be honest. Of course, it's pretty much a similar deal. Main thing I'm looking for at this level of the atmosphere is a short wave. And based off of what I'm seeing here, I don't really see too much in the way of that for Sunday. We are, like I said, we already know the deal with today and Saturday's setup here. So from the looks of it, the main thing left to look at will be the low-level jet here at 850 millibars. It's about 1,000 feet above our heads, this level of the atmosphere here. So this is where you start to see those clouds racing off at a high pace here, or at a very fast pace, so to speak. And from what I can see here, low-level jet isn't necessarily spectacular. I think this is what could limit the tornado threat on Saturday, hence why I don't think they hence why they're kind of uncertain about putting up a 5% area. And normally this is interesting too, because the NAM is usually a little bit hotter on stuff like this. But one thing I made note of last night during the stream and also in the video yesterday is this sudden change of winds with height here. When we went back on that last model, we saw the winds going a little bit more towards east northeast a little bit. We have directional veering right here. So of course, that being said, that leads to wind shear, but I'm really thinking this is going to be more of a linear type event. Could be supercells early, but then eventually we're going to transition towards more of an MCS or maybe even a squall line that develops later. So damaging winds, I think, is going to be the dominant threat here. That along with hail, especially as the line especially since we will start to see that congealed into a line eventually anyway. But that being said here, as far as Sunday is concerned, low-level jet's pretty limited. The timing on that is bad, so nothing to be concerned with there. And then Monday, of course, the potential looks a lot lower at the moment. We'll have to see how this plays out. Next thing to look at, of course, we're going to the convective models, the NAM 3 kilometer here. No surprise that we have a sufficient moisture return here. So this is getting towards 21Z. We do get a pretty good area right here over towards South Dakota, Nebraska, where we get a pocket of 60-degree dew points, sufficient enough for severe weather. And then, of course, with the tropical system, dew points there are pretty high. No real surprises there that the wind shear is going to be good, ideal here for maybe a couple of tropical tornadoes. So we're going to be probably doing live coverage on a tropical system and severe weather in general. It's pretty crazy to think about. Going to have our hands full here. And then here's Sunday. No surprises here towards Texas. The moisture return dew points are pretty rich. We're pretty close to the Gulf. Gulf of Mexico is opened back up, so no surprises there. 70-degree dew points, so it's going to be stifling over there as far as the humidity and just the overall feel outside over there on Sunday. So just make sure you're drinking plenty of water. If you don't have to do strenuous activity outside, definitely would encourage you not to. But of course, with that temperature, of course, this weekend is also going to be sufficient for severe weather. Usually above 65 is about the minimum here, and we're going to be more than surpassing that throughout the weekend. Still got some 80s, some 90s here. Well, plenty of 90s actually across Texas in particular. A little further up north, it's a little bit cooler. Towards Kansas on Saturday, we're getting into the 80s and 90s, and that's another thing that's concerning. That daytime heating is definitely looking like it could play a factor in regards to the outcome of tomorrow's severe weather event. As far as today is concerned, it's mildly warm over towards our main area of interest, but it's not quite as much of a I don't think it's going to be quite as explosive as what we could see over here towards the southern plains and the central plains. But of course, we'll just have to see how things play out. There's a lot more lift over here towards the western high plains. So that being said, the last thing to do here will be to look at the mixed layer, look at the cape, look at a couple other parameters as well. In general, like I said, I don't expect incredible numbers as far as today is concerned, as far as instability. We get some decent numbers. We get up to about 1,000 joules per kilogram, more than sufficient enough for severe weather, but it's not going to be a widespread onslaught, so to speak. It's a decent amount of cape that pops up here towards Kansas, but that has to be watched real closely as well. And then last but not least, as we get into Saturday, we have quite a bit of instability that develops here. This is about 20 Z's, so this will be probably about 2 p.m. I would say, Central Time. And then by the time we get towards OOZ, we still have a really sufficient instability, about 3,000 to 3,500 joules per kilogram. Pretty unstable environment, almost you would call it explosive at that point. And then by Sunday, instability returns and builds up more so over towards Texas, the Dallas area, hence the return of severe weather towards this region. If we were to look at other parameters such as things like bulk shear, wouldn't expect anything super crazy. If you start to see those areas in the red, that's a real eye-opener. I would expect to see that more on Saturday, if anything, versus today here. There could be some decent numbers over here, though. We do see something pop up, but timing is definitely going to be key there. Then here's Saturday. We do see a little pocket right here, but again, like I said, timing is going to be key. Could be nocturnal. If that ends up being the case here, that could be a big problem. Like with me clicking this, I do think the timing, just like I was thinking, was going to be off here. This is probably after the storms go through. Instability is pretty much gone. A lot of inhibition in play here, so no surprises there. And then, of course, here we go with Sunday. Shear looks relatively light, so the tornado threat should be relatively minimal, but of course, as we know, things like to change and change quickly, so stay tuned for updates on that. So last but not least, we're going to go ahead and take a look at what the radar could look like. We already know what we're dealing with over here towards the southeast. We already know what to expect here towards the plains. Probably going to start to see conditions deteriorate throughout the afternoon, especially as we're looking towards the Carolina coast. And then a little bit later today, we have this little feature start to spark storms over here towards the western high plains. We have that little lone storm right here with this little streak here. It's an updraft helicity, so this storm is more likely to go severe. And it really just looks like mainly one storm based off what the name is showing. And then as we head into Saturday, of course, we watch this little area of rain here, and this could set up the boundary for new storms to fire here. Once we get towards 21Z, we start to see the new storms form here. See a few semi-discrete storms here to start out, and of course, watch what happens as time goes on. We start to see this line begin to develop here, and then this MCS pops up. Out that goes, and then probably later in the evening is when we'll probably see new storms fire over towards Dallas on Sunday. That being said here, well, actually, hold on. We'll go ahead and take a look at potential tropical cyclone 16. This is likely going to become Ophelia. In fact, it's expected to do so today. But this is what the warnings look like. Watch the warnings look like. All tropical storm warnings down the Carolina coast here. Even for Virginia, getting awfully close towards Maryland even. Maybe even a few for Maryland, and then even towards the Delaware, we have the tropical storm warnings in effect here. We would anticipate landfall, if any, to be on Saturday afternoon. So anyone that's going out for any sort of football game or picnic, I would advise you not to if you live on the mid-Atlantic coast here pretty much all this weekend. Just set it up for another weekend if you can. This is also strengthened up to 50 miles an hour. The only reason that this is not called a tropical storm yet is because it doesn't have fully tropical characteristics right now. Don't really have too much time to go into details. I'll try to make a post about it later today if I can during work. But we'll see what happens with that. But rainfall is definitely going to be a big factor with this storm as well. Off the coast of Wilmington, definitely seems like you can get up to about maybe 6 inches of rain. The forward speed of the storm is definitely going to be the determining factor as to how much rain rain we could get here. It's actually a moderate risk for excessive rainfall, or aka flash flooding, just to the north of Wilmington and just off the Cape Hatteras region here. So definitely need to be on the lookout for that. Wave heights aren't expected to be insane, but still be quite a sight. Definitely would encourage you not to be out in the water this weekend. Seems like a very dangerous. Seems like it would be a very dangerous thing to do. Then on the day 2 outlook, we have this area to keep an eye out for as well, towards the coast here. We have a lot more of the mid-Atlantic involved in the slight risk this time, with potential for that to be upgraded too, of course. And then day 3, we're looking at the northeast now, so definitely need to be on the lookout for that. And then as far as tropical storm force winds are concerned, we'll probably start to feel the impacts already probably by this afternoon. And then it's going to continue to shift up the coast by 2 a.m. We're probably going to start to see those impacts getting into Virginia. And then probably by Saturday morning, we'll start to see the impacts in areas like Maryland and Delaware. And then by Saturday evening, even getting into Pennsylvania, and eventually maybe even working its way up towards New York, Connecticut, Rhode Island, and maybe Massachusetts by Sunday. So we'll see what happens with that. I got to run though at this point now. It's starting to get towards crunch time. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Of course, you know what to do. Hit that like button, smash that subscribe button, and decimate that share button. I'll see you guys later this afternoon. It's been Tired Metalhead Weatherman. Until then, take care and have an awesome day.